Hey, I'm David Liggett with datacenterHawk. I'm here with President of PhoenixNap, Ian McClarty. This is Hawk Talk 35, and we're talking about the data center industry. Next. Hey, I'm David Liggett with datacenterHawk. Focused on cloud and co-location, data center industry trends, the dynamic market. I'm David Liggett with datacenterHawk, and we're sitting in Phoenix, inside PhoenixNap's data center, and I am with President of PhoenixNap, Ian McClarty. Ian, thanks so much for hosting us.
Thank you, David, for coming down.
Yeah, you bet.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're excited to sit and chat with you about everything going on from a PhoenixNap perspective, but also just your background in the space from a technology standpoint is really interesting. So before we start, one of the things I love to do is just would love to learn more about your background. You've been in the role that you're in for a long time now, but just talk about what it took to get there and your role today.
Yeah, so I actually started my career more in, I would say, client services, right? Okay. On the technical side. I did system administration work early back in the day. I have an electrical engineering degree, so I kind of paused. Sure. While I was going to school, I was also working full time. So I ended up pausing that and went to semiconductor industry. Worked for a couple of years there, but really my heart desire was really around. At the time, it was telecom. Really, that was kind of the up and coming. All the internet related activities were really happening. All the innovation was happening there. So I want to go back into that space. So I came back into the Phoenix market and been here since then. Started with a holding company, and I've been with the holding company now for about 21 years. Okay. And I worked my way through management, and also have had roles that are very technically focused. I used to be CIO for the organization. But it was kind of an interesting CIO role because most CIO roles are all about technology. Sure. I quickly learned to align myself to the business. And one of the fastest alignments you can do from a business perspective is sales. Sure. So I had a couple of sales departments I was running as a CIO, which is not normal at all. Right? But that helped me also to kind of grow into role as a president of PhoenixNap. Yeah, you bet. Well, I think when people are in leadership roles, but they understand maybe different parts of organizations, it is really valuable. It helps grow organizations. Just talk about PhoenixNap, the company as a whole, real fast, because it's not just you are not just a Phoenix-based company. You have locations all across the U.S. and world. Just talk about that and kind of what you're seeing from an international basis. Yeah. So what PhoenixNap itself has evolved over the years from Phoenix, Arizona. I mean, the word NAP is Network Access Point, and we do own that space, and we still own it in the Phoenix metro region. Yes. But really, how we see ourselves is an infrastructure as a service provider. Mm-hmm. And in order to do infrastructure services properly, you have to be distributed. Sure. You can't just be in one location and call yourself an infrastructure provider servicing a global market. So a lot of our client base is from all over the world. We do have a lot of U.S. companies that want to expand internationally, and that drives a lot of our growth. But we also have European companies that want to come in and expand into the U.S. Sure. And also Asia Pac as well. So most of our client base is really in Phoenix and also in the U.S. and from Europe, and they've been just growing into more international regions. Yeah. And that's been fueling a lot of our growth, and we don't see that stopping. Sure. More and more countries are passing in-country law for data protection, right? Data sovereignty laws. As companies are trying to go into these different markets, they have to adapt to that. So it's a protection mechanism, but it's also an opportunity for a lot of companies to grow and expand. Yeah. How are you seeing clients today figure out the hybrid cloud environment and the hybrid co-location environment? How do those two things play together? Well, they can play really nicely, right? But it's really about a lot of vendor management. I mean, today it's just every company is managing dozens of co-location, cloud providers, software as a service providers, plus the bigger you are, the more vendor management you're doing typically, right? Unless you outsource the entire stack, right? And that does happen, by the way. But and we see that with some of our clients go that model, right? Where they've just one vendor, one neck to choke. That's rare. So most companies are really at a scale even are doing just dozens of vendors that they're managing right now. And what's the benefit to a company that? I mean, obviously there's some challenges with managing dozens of vendors, but what's the benefit to them for having access to so many different lines of people that can help them? So when it's done properly, you can really leverage proper workload management around infrastructure, right? There are services like, say, you're running an older mainframe, right? You're running AS400. By the way, we still see them. They're still active, right? I'm sorry, that's co-location. It has to be co-located. I mean, that's the only way you can handle a workload like that. But workloads that are maybe more cloud native, or that are newer, or that are more burstable, or are evolving, where you're trying to take out your legacy apps inside your organization, or you're doing a deep dive and saying, okay, what new innovative things can I do to better position myself to my customers and to the market? It's that innovation that's driving, fueling a lot of that growth, and being able to take advantage of providers like myself, providers like the public cloud providers that are out there, really help lower the cost basis and also help fund innovation.
Yeah, and I think it's one of the reasons we've seen data center operators really focus, not just, there certainly has been a shift from the power space and cooling to we're going to provide much more than that, and we're going to really help you from a strategic business standpoint than we are just providing just the infrastructure that is in place to stand up your IT environment.
Yeah, I would agree with that. There's definitely a play for providers that are trying to position themselves to be more cloud friendly, right?
Yes.
I think everybody at the space has now caught up to that.
Certainly. Yeah.
The limitation for a lot of companies, though, is the way they're structured. So we're incorporated as an LLC, as an example.
Okay.
We're not limited by what services portfolio offerings we can give to the market. If you're a REIT, different story, right? No more than 25% of your services entire portfolio can be services. Mm-hmm. The rest has to be space and power for the tax breaks you're getting, right? So there might how deep a company goes, especially in co-location, is really depending on how they're structured.
Yeah, sure.
There's a limiting factor there.
Yeah, and I think it's important for the user to make sure that the company that you're going to partner with. One, because these are long-term relationships. Two, because you're going to be in situations at times where you've got to really work together to come to a solution. Things don't always go right. And so really being with a provider that you trust and one that you really know who they are is really valuable. One of the other trends that we've seen from datacenterHawk's perspective has been the importance of connectivity continuing to increase. Yeah. And so one of the reasons we're sitting right here with this behind us is really the illustration that it shows of providers investing in environments where many different options are available for an end user. Just talk about, I know this is maybe Phoenix based, but I do want to talk about, this Meet Me room, what's special about this Meet Me room, but also the importance of connectivity for the user.
Yeah, so this Meet Me room specifically for the Phoenix metro region, we have a lot of international providers, right? So we have people like China Telecom, sure. We have Telstra, we have Tata that has a nice POP location here. We have a good carrier mix from Asia Pac. And then we have a really good carrier mix from Europe as well. We have TeliaSonera in here. We also have Colt Communications up there. We have Telxius, which is Telefonica Group, as well servicing. Sure. And we're always in constant conversation with more providers that are international coming into this metro. We really service that international client coming in. A lot of the other data centers are more focused on US, sure. Or what's within region, right? Uh-huh. And we have all those guys as well. But really, we've been focusing more on driving that international business to the Phoenix metro region. And that's important for companies that are coming in, that are moving from California. That's a requirement in a lot of ways, right? They have to have that good connectivity going back. Those good tunnels going back to Asia are critical, right? Yeah. So we continue to see that as a fuel, right, for telecom internationally driven. And
then let's talk quickly about Phoenix, just because you're from here. Talk about just how this market has grown and maybe changed over the last 3 to 4 years. You've certainly seen this market in its infancy and now where it is today. So talk about just some of the changes you've seen.
Yeah, so what we're seeing today is we're seeing more and more growth from larger operators coming in, right? I mean, it's seen as a greener pastures right now in the Phoenix metro. And so we have a lot of corridors. We have corridors in the North Valley. Sure. We have data center corridors in the West Valley. We have data center corridors in the East Valley. And we have data center corridors to the south of us as well. So it's become a very corridor-rich, facilities, right? There's a lot of them and clusters, and these are large facilities coming in. Sure. They're going for 1 million square feet. That's their goal. Yeah. But they also don't want a lot of smaller clients. Sure. They want as wholesale as they can get. Yeah. And so you're talking about like large web scalers or hyperscalers is who they're targeting. At the same time, you also have the hyperscalers coming in. So one of the things that I think is a distinguishing factor for us is AWS Direct Connect. We service that out of our facility. It's here, physically, right? Physically, we're servicing all of these data centers that are coming in that are not so telecom rich with that service, right? Yeah. So that's great for AWS Direct Connect. It's great for us. It's great for them. It's what also is kind of unique about us is we're right in the middle of all these corridors. We're in the central. We're in the center of all these different corridors. Yeah. So it makes a lot of sense for telecom to deploy in facilities like ourselves, because instead of being out to the east corridor, now you got to go to the west corridor. Now you're limiting the amount of fiber runs you got to make, the fiber distance miles, and getting better latency. So that's a big factor.
Let's talk about security for a minute. One of the, I guess it's not uncommon to hear, almost on like a daily basis about breaches that take place from a cybersecurity standpoint. How are you all focused on like helping your clients, obviously on the physical security side of things, but also at the data level? I mean, what can you do to be helpful to them? Yeah,
so we do a couple different things. Again, because we're not a REIT, the way we're structured, we're really focused around infrastructure IT services. And security is our strong posture. I mean, we do have a lot of security experience from other organizations that we have managed on the holding side. So we focus a lot on PCI compliance. That's been rooted for us since the beginning. As a matter of fact, we're one of the few data centers that actually is PCI DSS compliant. If you go to the MasterCard Association website, to the Visa MasterCard Association website, you'll see us listed as a DSS provider. So that's one thing that we do and that has a lot of physical controls, obviously. Now, on the cloud services that we do, on the other services that are there, we offer a good range. So we have backup and recovery on one portion, on one side of the spectrum. And backup and recovery is really your last lifeline. That's how you should see it. You've been breached. Your data is corrupt. Your systems are gone. You can't trust your data anymore. You need to be able to recover. You need a recovery point. Even if it's not in real time, at least you have a recovery point. At least you're in business, right? You may lose a couple of weeks of data. You may lose a week of data. You may lose a couple hours. But at least you're in business. And so that's your lifeline. And as long as you see it that way, you're at least, and it's also just a best business practice. You should be doing, and it's also compliance driven too on top of that, right? So there are a lot of reasons why you should be doing these services. So we've really embraced backup and recovery services. We've won a couple of awards actually in that space. Via Veeam, we actually have won multiple years, innovation awards or awards for Rising Star of the Year. So we've done well in that space. But that isn't the end all be all. I mean, you also have to have, sometimes it's seen as insurance, right? Disaster recovery is a service. It's not backup and recovery. It's disaster recovery, right? There's a difference. There's a nuance. When not your data, but when all your infrastructure is gone. So that's what it really is addressing. Your infrastructure is gone physically, or it's not in a state that can be utilized. You need to be able to come back up. You don't even have your data. You don't even have your systems. You have nothing, right? So in a true disaster, system, we're able to now bring you up in multiple locations across the world. And that we call that disaster recovery as a service. Now on the actual security side of the house, right? We talk more about insurance now, because that's what VR is insurance. And backup and recovery really is a lifeline. On the actual security side, what we have done is we've developed from the ground up a very compliant, focused cloud offering. We call it Data Security Cloud. And we give you a lot of transparency into a breach, because that's the one thing that we can count on. You will be breached at some point in time. You just don't know it, right? Do you know it or you don't know it? And so by embracing that, we put a lot of transparency, a lot of focus into what the data is doing, what the network is doing, who's in there, who's doing what, so that way you can be proactive. You can minimize those outages. You can minimize that downtime. You can isolate the breach, right? And so we really developed a system around not just being very compliant driven, but also having a lot of input into what's actually going on and a lot of transparency back to you.
Sure. So if I had you speak to the data center user specifically, you will have thousands of customers, and you've seen some of them do it really well, and you probably see some of them struggle with the way that they implement their IT infrastructure or migrate their services from one facility into yours. Along those lines, how have you seen companies do it well? Like when you think about their IT infrastructure planning, their approach, you have the knowledge of all of your customers. If you were to say, hey, these are the things we're seeing customers do and do well today, what would you say those are?
I would say the ones that do it really well are to a point where it's scientific for them. And what I mean by that, they will roll in a rack, ready to go. Right? All we're doing is providing the power, the network for them, and the space, right? And they're ready. Those are very few, right? That is a customer that really understands their IT down to a science, right? They know that this node is going to be so big, it's going to produce this fast, and they also have a really good handle on their run rates. They know their IT and they know their business really well. Most companies aren't like that, right? So what companies typically will come and do is they'll try to move data to us, but they don't have enough bandwidth. A lot of times we have to sneaker net it over. We literally have SAN clusters that we ship out. to customers on-prem so that they can actually see the information over.
Sure. Yeah.
It's the fastest way by using a delivery system like FedEx or UPS than by using the network, because by the time they augment their network to have and that's only be like a one use, maybe a couple times a year factor, right? It doesn't make any financial sense. Sure. It's the most financial and also the quickest way to get data into the data center. And so you see that end of the spectrum as well, right? And I would say those are customers that are not doing it as well, but they're trying to address a problem, right? They're like, look, we're trying to get a better handle on IT, right? We're trying to have more high availability. We're trying more redundancy. We're trying to get out of our closet. We're trying to do all the right things, and that's important, right? So I would say that they're putting the step in the right direction.
Sure, makes sense.
Yeah.
When you think about the next 5-10 years in the space, I mean, you've been in this industry for a long time. You're a technologist at heart, we talked about before. Yeah. You're in the middle of your third master's, so for those that don't know, this is a smart man. Talk just about what gets you excited about this industry moving forward. What gets you most, fired up about being in the data center industry and the service provider industry moving forward?
I think one of the things that gets me really excited is the DevOps community. It's very disruptive, right? And it's disruptive not because of what they're necessarily doing, right? It's disruptive because of how they're doing it, right? It's not the what, it's the how. And what they're really focusing on are breaking down the silos in an organization and getting code out fast. Now that has positives and negatives like anything else, but the code release, the number of applications that are going to be out there, the number of data, the number of potential business models that can be created is going to be exponentially growing.
Yes.
And as more and more companies are embracing those needs, we're trying to position ourselves well in that space as well.
Sure.
Right? We're trying to be more API driven, be more API focused.
Yes.
Break down our silos as well. Try to be more adaptive to a changing environment.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the most biggest disruptions that's happening right now in the industry.
Sure.
Now the pendulum does swing, right? It moves, and right now it's definitely moving over toward DevOps right now.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of the silo frustration a lot of companies are having, right?
Sure.
They're trying to get out code and they're trying to get out fast, and their competitors are doing it faster sometimes than they are, right?
Yep.
So that it's the quickest adaptation way. It definitely is being used as a sledgehammer approach.
Sure.
So it will have other ripples like security. DevOps doesn't really focus on security, right? It's about getting code out. There are more secure ways to do it, and there are better business practices you can do, but it doesn't have necessarily the oversight from security departments, right? Yeah. Not necessarily built into the model. So that's one caveat. I mean, we will see more breaches. Yeah. We'll see more security needs, right? And I'm sorry, there's not enough security people coming in out of school. Physically, we also have another evolution of people retiring, right? Yeah. So we're going to have there's going to be opportunity here for companies. There's the gap right here. There's not enough people, and there's not enough people coming in. Sure. There's people leaving that have all the experience. Yeah. So we're going to have a massive gap of security-related services, and yet we have more and more data. We have more and more applications going out, right? Yeah. So it's going to be an interesting market, but with that level, there's also opportunity for companies to tackle those problems.
Yeah. So Ian, talk a little bit about some of the unique services that PhoenixNap is providing today.
Yeah, today we're providing a product called Flux Servers.
Okay.
Flux Servers is unique to the market. We're the only ones that can provide this. And what it is the ability for somebody through an OpEx model to come in at a 4000 series processor line on the Xeon side with Intel. Yeah. Through a reboot, they can upgrade from a 5000, 6000, all the way to an 8000, the highest of the high right availability of a processor to them. And that's done by a really quick service order right now with us. In the future, it'll be API driven. Right now, it's a quick service order change, and you can scale it up, scale it down, and it just requires a maintenance window, a quick reboot, and you're on upgraded hardware.
Interesting, fascinating. Well, and that's really highlights how data center operators today are serving customers in a totally unique way, and that's a really interesting comment. So thanks for sharing that with us. Thanks for letting us be here in PhoenixNap's data center in Phoenix, and we really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you all grow more in the future.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you guys coming down.
You bet.